we're going to install CakePHP Q plugin. So to begin, we're going to start just by starting with our Cake cookbook documentation page and the simple installation steps. Now, all you need to do is, in your CakePHP project, is start with the installation there. Now, I'm not sure if this is going to work, but I'm going to try it. Apparently, Redis now has a newer version, so if this works, it will make it in the video. If it doesn't, it won't. And this command here, add plugin CakePHP, we can do that with using, so it's bin cake if you've not got it in your path, but bin cake plugin load. I'm just going to make a mistake deliberately, and to show you what happens. If it cannot find the plugin, you'll see that, and if that's the case, just make sure you spell it correctly or check that it's installed, and then if it's right, it will change the src application file and add the code right there for you. So that's what we need to get the plugin installed. Now let's look at configuration. Now in this particular case, we're going to open up our app local, and we're going to add the default configuration here. Now this default configuration is needing a little bit of change for our Docker environment. So if we have a look at our Docker environment, we have a Redis container running, and it's where we're going to point this URL here. Now Redis : simply says we're going to be using the Redis server for queuing, but we need to then specify the container name. Now the container name is derived from looking in our Docker Compose YAML file, which we created on a previous video, and it's just that Redis host name, service name, and that's what we're connecting to. And we don't need to specify a port because it's going to be the default port that's the PHP container will be connecting to across the internal Docker network that's connecting the containers. So this is a pretty default. This is needed, the WorkerListener class. So to save a little bit of time, I'm just going to go and grab that from my Docker environment here. It's in the dev, and this is our working one. So if we go src listener, we're going to copy that WorkerListener into back up to here, and we go src, and we need to create a folder, and pop it in to the folder there. Going back to our editor, we can see that's appeared here. We just need to make sure that this path name is correct and that it's resolving. Now what's inside our WorkerListener? Every event that the CakePHP Q plugin raises, the listener's job is simply to listen for that event. So whenever CakePHP Q plugin raises a specific event, this listener can hear the event and then trigger some application logic, whatever you'd like. At the moment, all I'm doing is logging. If it sees the event, it logs a method, with the exception of message success, which it's actually getting inside the message a bit and then logging that message as well. So that's required for successful running of the CakePHP queue plugin. So you just need to create to make a listener. You need to implement the event listener interface, and then you need to have an implemented events function which returns an array of all the events. Those events are available in the documentation. I'll just say worker events and go down. These are the events, their arguments. It's interesting, but the arguments are actually wrapped in an event, so you might need to look at the event documentation about how to look inside to get the message out of the event as well. Now, what we've got so far, we haven't created anything. We're going to look at, going back to the documentation, we're going to start with this. We're not going to do just a job first. We're going to do a mailer action. And to do that, how do we create a queue enabled mailer action? Well, the first thing we do is we say bin cake bake, and we're going to bake a mailer, and we're going to create a NotifyMailer. And with our NotifyMailer, notice it's now created. We might just close these as well. We can go in here and look at NotifyMailer, and we need to be able to specify this queue trait. So within here, if we click into our class and then go use queue trait. Now there's something wrong with my setup here, because what I was expecting to see was the ability to auto-complete this, and I don't want to manually do that. So I'm just going to go in here, and notice here it says recommended PHP IntelliFence, and it's not currently installed in the PHP Docker container. So now I've just installed it, and I purchased a license because this is such a good product, and just going to reload the window to make sure that the IntelliFence server's seeing things correctly. Now, can you see how that's now working? Just a word of advice, I keep doing this, but I keep getting query trait instead of queue trait. So just make sure it is queue trait and not query trait. Now from that point, we then just simply do normal mailer methods. So we're going to change this and call this the notify method, because everything's going to be related to notifications. And this is currently taking a email address and a username. So that's all that we need at the moment. Now, in order for us to use this class and put it into a queue, we're going to have to create a little bit of structure, if you like, to do that. So I'm going to just go to my working instance and open up this working instance here, and don't know why, but it seems to have opened the wrong place. So I'm going to go in and choose that and select, and we need some ability to, I'm going to create a table. So let's do that. I'll just move this out of the way. So we want to create a migrations, create add users table. And if we have a look here, let's collapse everything so it's a bit easier. We've now got a skeleton, but I can just paste some code in here to create our table here. I'm going to change this to full name so I remember it, and it's just full name and email. That's all that's going to be stored in the table for the time being. And once we have a migration file, we can just choose to migrate it. And that will, if we go into our MySQL database workbench program, we can then see that we've created a just a table with an ID column, and we're now ready to move forward. So from that, we're going to need some information. We're going to need to create a Baker seed, and we're going to call it the UsersSeed. And so we need to create a bunch of users, and all it's asking for us to do is to populate some information here. And this could be done in a sort of factory class and those sorts of things, but I'm going to do it in line. So all I'm going to do is just say, for I equals 0 and less than 20, I want to create some information, and what I want is a full name and an email here, and I want 20 of them. Now this is where it's handy to have Faker. So we're going to install Faker to make some fake information for ourselves. And in the Faker documentation, all we need to do is get a reference to Faker using this. So we can pop that in. Now what you'll notice with this is we've got a squiggly line. It's IntelliFence. It's complaining it can't find the Faker module or class, the factory class. But now we just reload and it's saying, yeah, I can find it. That's all good now. And that will mean it'll make it a little bit easier to create the next bits. So I've got a first name I want to create using Faker, and got a last name, and domain name. Now that'll be enough for us to create our first name, last name, gives us our full name, and then for our email address, let's copy that and go full name dot last name at domain name, and do I always like my email address to be lowercase, and can anyone see? And we can. The reason for that is we're missing a right arrow. So now we have an array of arrays full of the data we need. Now this is where you might want to do this. Every time I run a seed and I forget to put truncate in, I get hundreds more records because that keeps appending to the table. But I want to actually remove anything that's already in there to run this. So going back to migrations and seed. Now if we leave that open, it'll just run every seed in the directory. But if we specify this, it will just choose the seed that we specify. And then when we go in here, we can see that we've got some dummy data. Now that is where we come to the point where we need to be able to visualize that information in the database. So what we're going to do is use Cake's rapid development baking feature, which is we're going to bake all our models, views and controllers in one fell swoop using this bake command. And what that's done, if we go to our Nginx server here and then we put in a /users, it's baked all our views and we can just interact with them immediately. Now, we might make a small change there just for convenience sake. Go into our roots file and make a change to the default root and say, instead of going to that pages directory, just go to the index page, and you don't need to pass it a home thing. So if we now move that, we can see that we've got our image there. So let's give ourselves a link so that we can, and a form so that we can create some notification emails with that. So how do we start with that? Well, we go to our templates. Let's make a change to our index.php. And what we're going to do, I'm just going to grab a little bit of the code from our add so that I can now add a couple of closing tags here, and let's have a look at what that's done. Okay, so I've got that correct. Now go back in here, and we're not going to list users, we're going to notify them, and we're going to use a notify method in our controller. So let's now add the notify method to the controller, and generally just can pop it in public function. Actually, there might be, let me have a look. Yep. So we can create a public function called notify and just delete the bits and pieces. And we need to say, okay, we're going to be notifying our users. So from the users table, find a list of all the users and then set it to the view using the compact method. Now, if we try to do that now, we've got missing method, but if we try this again, it'll now say, okay, missing template. So let's go and create a template, and we're going to use the add template as a foundation for this, and we're just going to paste that in and call it notify. And this template is currently saying it wants to, yes, go, that's correct. We'll just remove this, we'll make it a null context form, and then we'll say notify users. And for a notification form, we want to have a subject, we want to have a body, and then we want a list of users who we can send a notification to. And we might even change it to notify here, and just so that we don't have a lot of scrolling to do, we're going to put another button in place. So let's have a look at that. So we've got users here. Now we've baked this with just the default bake commands, and notice that it's at the moment what it's doing, it's giving us back ID. If we have a look at the source or the markup, we'll see that the value is the ID, the database ID, but then the actual label is the ID again. So there's something wrong there. Bake hasn't been able to figure that out. So we're going to go into our users table and just find the initialize method and set a display field here instead of ID, because it couldn't figure it out automatically. We're just going to set the full name as the display field and then refresh. Now this is at the moment, this has just done its best to think, well, what is required, and it's given us a select list, but I want a bunch of checkboxes here. So I'm going to now go into my notify method again and just say, look, I want it to be a multiple select, but I want checkboxes. And when we go back, we can go, okay, well that's good. Now we're seeing an issue where it's just plain hideous. If we look at the markup, we would probably go in here and start to say, well, I want to change, well, that font weight's wrong, so I want to change my font weight to maybe 300, and as we can see, that's good. And then maybe we'd want to do something like on our input we change the margin so that it's not so, we'll go margin right, and we'll say 10 pixels, and that is what we want to do. But how can we maybe target this so that it's a little bit easier to target this specific control? Well, we can use CakePHP. If we go into the CakePHP documentation and looking for forms, there's a method called setTemplates, and we're going to use this. Let's grab setTemplates and put that into, just before we're going to set templates, and we're going to in here we're going to add an array. So what we're looking for, there's a template that generates, if we go back to our, we go back to here, there's a template that generates all these labels, these inputs and those sorts of things. We're going to go find the div class equals checkbox template and make a tweak to it. Now when we hover over this form, the thing that creates the controls, it's using the form helper, and we get a path there. It's cake view helper form helper. So going to vendor directory, CakePHP, CakePHP, src, and then we get to the section now that we're in to find the view folder, and we're going to find the helper folder, and we're looking for the form helper. Now notice in here that we've got a number of all the different template options. So find out which one's causing you the problem, come in here, copy it. So checkbox wrapper is the one we're looking for. And you notice that there's the checkbox one, all these sorts of things. Find the wrapper, pop it into here, and then make a change so that you can edit it, and it will then pick up that change. So from here onwards, now we could do something similar to this after this, and then reset that back to default if we only wanted to do it for one control. But this allows us to really make even possibly global changes. If we have a look at this form changes here, we can actually make this global by adding all the templates into a specific file in the config directory and then returning whatever we want to change there as well. But this is just doing it as a one-off. So let's reload our files, and notice there it's picked up the class for the CSS class. Now we'd like to go in and create in the web root, a CSS file. We're going to call that fix.css. And we're going to target the fix. Well, first of all, we want the label. And we want to say font weight was 300. And we also wanted, didn't we, input, we wanted to change margin right. And that was going to be 10 pixels. And now we need to point our view file at that. So we go this HTML helper, another helper again, CSS, fix, and we need to say, no, we don't want it echoed out in line, but we need to say it's going to go in the default CSS block. So once again, reload, and it's picked up the changes, because if we look in the markup, that CSS file has been put into the head of the document after all your standard CSS. So that's handy to look at, isn't it? And now we just think, oh, okay, there's a little bit of an issue here. We can't make this perfect on a demo, but we can sort of then say, oh, okay, I'm also going to turn off the size of the bottom margin and do that sort of thing, and you could tweak to your heart's content there. So now we have a form that will give us some information. If we go back to, we'll just close these, Control KW. If we go back to our user controller, we can now make some code to say, if this request is a post request, I want you to do something. So if the request is a post request, just let's dump and die this request, get the data, and just have a look at what we're getting from this field when we put in a test subject. That's the body and a couple of users. Now notice this happens quite often when you're developing, and it's the CSRF token mismatch basically. So you just need to press enter again and then try again, and now it works. So what are we getting? We're getting, if it's a post, it's just dump and dying. If we go back again and we do a get, so it avoids the post, and then if we go body with no users, notice that we get an empty string. So what we can do now, inside our post field, we can say post, might grab that, we'll say, okay, grab the data and assign all those user IDs to data users, unset those users because we don't want it to go through any further than that, and then we say if is array, the user ID, we'll call that IDs, so it's not an ID, it's IDs. If it's an array, let's now do some queuing. So we'll say for each user IDs as ID. Now we want to send to queue here. So what do we need to do? Well, remember we created a mailer here, a NotifyMailer. We need to get hold of this mailer. Mailer equals this get mailer. Now there should be a class there, a method there available, but it's not because we've yet to do this. So we need say use mailer aware trait, and this will allow you to get hold of a mailer from it wherever you need it. Tell us the mailer name, and what we're looking for with this mailer is we're looking for a method called push. Now it's not available there, so we're going to just type in the variable. So we're going to say app mailer NotifyMailer is this mailer variable, and from that point we'll be able to use the push functionality. Now notice it's saying with this mailer I want you to push to a Redis queue or CakePHP using the queue plugin to whatever queue software is available, and we created a method called notify, and then it's saying okay, pass to that notify method an array, and the first argument will be the first one we passed here, and then it will just be each one after that. So we can go like this, and let's just have a look at our notify mailer. And our birds are making noise. One moment. And so our notify mailer is looking for an email address and a username. So the first one we want is, we want data, email, and then data, and it was full name, wasn't it, that it's passing. So now the challenge we've got here is we currently don't have a user, so what we're going to have to do here is we're going to have to grab a user, and it's going to be this users table using the get method. The get method, all it needs is the primary key, and it will return a user. So what I've done there is incorrect. What we need to do is make a change here, and we can use this style of reference, but let's see what happens when we attempt to do this. And we've got our test, we've got body here, and then this. Now nothing's happened, and I can't tell if that has sent to the queue or not. So let's go and have a look in the Redis software, another Redis desktop manager software. Right. So it has sent it to the queue. So that was all that we needed to get it working. Now, looking at you have to sort of escape all the quotes in your head, but this is basically the body and these sorts of things are everything that the Redis software is using. So the wrapping Redis PHP and Q software, but this body is the CakePHP message, and once the worker unpacks this, it knows what to do. It says use this mailer job class and feed it this notify mailer, and then run this notify action and pass to it this email address and this user name. So that really can help you to sort of understand the nuts and bolts of what's inside the queue message. Now if we attempt to run the worker, if we go bin cake and scroll up, we need to find the cake queue section, and we've got worker option here. So if we say cake worker, and then we are seeing just thousands of exceptions. Now, why are we seeing thousands of exceptions? What is wrong? What is causing so many exceptions? Well, let's have a look at the documentation. We go here, and okay, right. So we're seeing that we've got an issue here with the, if we have a look at that again, right. So we've got another issue here. The first issue was that we had a problem with, it was raising an exception. There's something wrong with the mailer class. Something's not working with the mailer class here. So let's test the mailer class and see if there's something wrong with the mailer. So if we can see if we can fix it, and then we'll have a look at the other error message. So we've got src mailer. This is our class here, and in a previous video I created a mail test command. So bin cake mail test, and it would forward an email to our Mailhog server and tell us if it's working or not. So now let's use the same mail test command, which is simply using this to see if we can figure out why our mailer is not working, if there's a bug in our code or something, and see if we can raise an exception, but one that we can see. So what we need to do here, we need to get hold of our NotifyMailer. And again, we can use the mailer aware trait for that. And notice we used a, where was it? NotifyMailer. We used this. So we use this code, but we're not going to push to the mailer this time. We're just going to get hold of the NotifyMailer and do something else. We're going to go mailer, is it send? And again, it's we're going to call the notify action, and we're just going to duplicate the arguments that we were going to send. We're going to send an email address and a full name. Now let's see if there's something wrong. Now let's run the test and see if there's an issue with... Okay, so what we can see there, it's saying I tried to find a template, and I looked in templates, email, text, notify, and I couldn't find a template. And I can't continue, so I've raised an exception. So looking at our NotifyMailer, we can fix that problem by going into templates, email, text, and really we could just copy that and paste it and say, call it notify. And let's see if that works. Okay. And so that's fixed the immediate error message, but we'd probably want to do a little bit more than just have a text message going through. So let's do another thing here, and we're going to modify this a little bit. So this is our NotifyMailer. Let's take in some more information. Or actually, no, I'm not going to do that. Let's just get the queuing working. So we know it's working. We're going to now go into here. And let's have a look at, firstly, get our worker running again. And at the moment, all right, so at the moment we've got a reserved key, and notice here it's saying CakePHP processor and this sort of thing. And we're just going to add another job to the queue by just clicking our notify. Now notice that's worked perfectly. We can do that again with multiple emails. So we're putting them all onto the queue, and there should be, if we have a look at MailHog again, there should have been a whole series of emails now added a few seconds ago, as we can see, with no email body because we're not fleshing that out. But notice here that we've now got another exception, and it's saying processor wasn't found, and it's looking for that. If we have a look in our, we just refresh our Redis queue, it's looking for that exact same processor again, and that processor will never exist again because it's a random hash that it creates. So how do we fix this, and how do we stop this error from happening? Well, firstly, delete whatever was in the queue. You can choose delete, and then you know that nothing's there. And then whenever you start a worker, always start it with the -p. So if you go help and press enter, you'll see that there's a number of things that are very useful for workers. Max attempts, the maximum number of jobs each worker would run, the maximum run time. So you can mix and match these things to make it work for you. One good thing to do is give it a maximum run time and then start the worker. So in your cron tab, you can just work on this. So I just stopped the video and restarted it, so I can't exactly remember where I was up to, but a good idea is to set a maximum runtime with the worker, and so give it a worker -r and give it some number of seconds that you want it to run. And this is the crucial part. Always set a processor name. Now this is arbitrary. It can be anything you like, just any string, but just if you're going to run 1, 2, 3, 4 workers and have them talk to a specific queue, just set it the default. So you configure your queues in the configuration array, and then just specify that you're going to do that. And so what that will do, if you run maybe this in cron tab and launch it, it will die after 120 seconds, and then you can relaunch it every few minutes and make sure that that you've not going to have things climbing over the backs of each other, but then you have fresh code if you're updating code and all those sorts of things. But here we have the secret source. The -c directive is not needed when it's the default queue, but here we now have the ability, if we now create a worker that, just to show this error, and we send a heap of, again, send the same things to the, and send a heap, notice what happens. Again, if you've got any workers at all that don't have the same worker name, you'll get this mismatch. So create each worker. So look at the one that you've already created here, and we'll just remove that time runtime thing, but create them with -p and the same name if they're talking to the same queue. So from that point, we can now go in, do a heap of notifications. We're just triggering, adding to the queue, and when we go back, we'll find that it's all successfully worked. Now, where is these messages coming from? These are just the WorkerListener class. So when there's a success, it's just going into that message and saying, give me the message, and then taking the arguments out, because we know that the arguments are passed in as an indexed array there, and we're getting the email and the full name, and then we're just logging out to the console an informational message. And if we go back to MailHog, we can see that that's working well. So what have we achieved so far? Well, we've been able to create a mailer action that sends to a Redis queue, and we've been able to get around a bug that causes the worker to exit, and we've also looked at maybe making the workers run for X number of seconds, and also being able to test your email commands by sort of bypassing the application logic a little bit, so that you can figure out what exceptions being thrown by looking at them. So I hope that has helped in our first look at using CakePHP queue plugin and mailer actions.